All too often, I talk about getting my hands on the N64 F-Zero game, and many times, both in real life and online, I get recommended to check out Wipeout. It's a lot easier to find for a decent price, and apparently it's quite similar. It's kind of a stretch saying these two games are similar at all. That being said, I had a pretty good time working my way through this game. Starting up the game, we have a weirdly simple title screen. There's no cinematic recording of any racing happening at all, it's just the picture used on the face of the cartridge. It might be worth stating here that I am playing on the N64, and I've not played any other versions of this game that might be more feature-rich. If this title screen is better on any other console, I wouldn't be too surprised. Moving into our main menu, we don't actually have any type of circuit or Grand Prix mode here, which I thought was kind of interesting. In fact, I found out later on in my time with this game that we only have 7 tracks to race on total. 7! In order to unlock all of these tracks for use in time trials, single races, or multiplayer though, we need to play what is this game's primary single player option, the challenge mode. In the challenge mode, we are given a car, a track, and a set of items that will be on for the race. Sometimes there are plenty, sometimes there are none, and it's a decent setup for a mode. I had a pretty good time learning these courses and racing through them against my opponents, and some of the items you'll be finding in this game are actually quite cool. The thing I noticed right away though was this. Wipeout is a fast-paced, high-speed racer, and not every turn will be telegraphed well ahead of time in these courses. It's really difficult to do well in these challenges at all without taking a couple attempts just to learn the course, which can be a little frustrating at the start of every new track you take on. But it's nothing you can't get used to. It's not typically a style of racing game I like to play recreationally, but this game had recommendations behind it for me, so I just sucked it up and learned the courses like the game was asking me to. That is, I learned all but one of them. By the time I reached the final challenge in this mode, I realized the developers were asking too much of me. At least, they were asking too much of me for the amount of fun that I was having playing the game. This 6th track is devious. I don't know why they set up the track like this, but just look. We have super tight corners, we have corners that are set up in such a way that these overhangs block your vision from even knowing which way you're supposed to be turning by the time you get there, and this track is basically all turns throughout the whole thing, so it's really hard to memorize. I didn't spend too long here before I decided I just didn't want to finish the challenge mode. I believe that in completing this mode there would be a 7th challenge, or at least completing the 6th one would unlock a 7th race in the rest of the modes, because there is a 7th race shown here, but I wasn't about to put myself through that. This 6th course was immediately frustrating for me, and I just dropped it there. But let's stop and talk about the driving for a second, because the driving controls are actually the largest highlight of the game for me, given that the rest of the content is kind of bare bones compared to every other racer on the system. The driving in this game is responsive and unique, and I really had a lot of fun learning it. We've got floaty cars with pretty good to quite decent handling, and no real form of brakes. This game is meant to be played at high speeds, and you really feel that in driving the vehicles. A is to accelerate, B is to use your item, and Z and R are your drifting buttons. The drift we have here though is actually quite interesting. We're not on the ground with these vehicles, so we can't exactly slide around the turn the same way a wheeled vehicle would, so what they came up with here solves how driving in a hover car like this might feel. If we hold R, it's as if a rocket on our right side of us propels us to the left. It does this so that when we turn our car to the right while holding R, we slide sideways towards the corner, release the drift button, and shoot off in the desired direction. This goes for turning left as well by using the Z button. It can be pretty tough to get used to this style of drifting, but once you do start to feel comfortable with it, you can make some pretty godlike turns. The last thing I want to mention is just how cool this game's time trial mode is. I know what you're thinking. Time trials are really simple by nature. How is this going to be any cooler than any others we've seen throughout the years? Well, let me introduce you to Wipeout 64s. In this time trial mode, we are not racing to beat our personal best time on the track over the course of 3 laps, but rather we are racing for our fastest single lap time. Yeah, they actually don't seem to care that much what time you get in your full race as much as your individual fastest lap here, and I think that's kind of awesome. You always start the race with a perfect boost, every lap gives you 1 speed boost item that you can use on your lap, and you have infinite laps to chase down your fastest time. It's honestly a really cool system in my opinion. Just keep going and going until you got what you're happy with. Is Wipeout 64 a great game? Absolutely. I just think it suffers from a lack of content. There are no circuits to try to get successive wins on, there are only 7 total tracks in the game, the 7th of which only unlocks if you decide to chase after a win on the awful 6th challenge course, and on top of that, there are like 4 cars. I think as a kid, none of this would have really mattered to me, and I would have still sunk hundreds of hours into playing it, but as things stand in today's day and age, I don't really see myself coming back to play it again. Maybe one day I'll try for a challenge mode completion, but I don't know, I honestly don't see it. I guess it'll remain a fun multiplayer racer in my collection for now. If your experience with Wipeout 64 was any different than mine, please let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, consider subscribing as well. I post videos like this every single Friday, so you're not going to want to miss it. If you'd like to see another one of my videos, or the entire playlist holding my N64 game reviews all together, they'll be on screen now. As for this week, that's my time. My name's Myloe, and I'm out.